Perfect.
Hi, Lauren. We're with Lauren Tucker from the White Buffalo Land Trust and formerly of Kiss the Ground. And so excited to talk to you today. Um, we were introduced a few years ago from friends at Hatch who knew both of us pretty much only talked about regenerative agriculture. And we're like, you need to chat, you need to talk. And then met in person in LA, and just so happy to know you now and have you in my life and for this conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And would love to hear more about your journey. I guess I knew you while you were at Kiss the Ground, and we've talked a little bit about your journey now to White Buffalo Trust, but I don't know if I've ever heard your story of how you ended up at Kiss the Ground and your journey in food or to food, and uh,
Yeah.
so would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. It's interesting because looking back, I can find the moment it started, but I don't think in the moment I pinpointed it. I guess that's the way it is with all life stories, is it kind of evolves and then you look back and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But I have this degree in international studies, and I really thought I was going to do policy work for the UN or figure out how to solve hunger on the continent of Africa, or like that's what I thought I was going to do with my life. And when I was 20, I studied abroad in Ghana. All my friends went to Europe or Australia, and I was like, Ghana's on the list. Like, I'm there. So I got on the plane, I studied abroad in Ghana, and I ended up taking an agroforestry class. And that was actually my favorite class that semester. And we learned about traditional tropical agroforestry and all the diversity of animals and plant species and how they all work together. And so that was a pretty formative moment. I also decided I really didn't want to work in international development, that it was pretty corrupt and mostly politically motivated, or opening up free markets in other countries. And I just decided I didn't want a part of it. So then after college, I ended up in New Orleans doing rebuilding work after Katrina and a lot of grassroots environmental work there. And I got pregnant. And so that was kind of like my next moment in food. When I was pregnant, I suddenly felt this immense responsibility for what went into my body. And I have these memories of just wandering Whole Foods for like literally hours. I was like this crazy person, and I would read every label. I'm like, what's in this? Is it good for me? So those were two pretty formative moments. And then I ended up moving to California a little over 10 years ago. And one of the first places I ended up was a small town in Northern California, where I worked in a little tiny farm store and volunteered on an organic farm. So then from there, it became learning how to garden, learning how to grow food, classes. I did the Master Gardener's training. And then I guess about 7 years ago, my friend Rylan Engelhart, who is one of the owners of Cafe Gratitude and now is executive director at Kiss the Ground, he got super inspired about soil carbon sequestration. So healthy soil is a climate change solution. And so we started attending lectures and gathering in his living room, and that turned into a group of friends who met once a week, and that became the beginning of Kiss the Ground. So a couple of moments along the way, and then
Oh, that's
yeah.
incredible. I love how it seems like so many people, there's just that simple entry into eating better for ourselves, and it leads to then just this whole awareness of the food system and a different way of looking at the world and nature, and it can just be one moment and that opens all that up.
Yeah, I actually really love the visual of that Alice in Wonderland, like down the rabbit hole, like this idea that you go down and like you're never gonna come back up. Like you just keep going, and I don't know if down is the right direction, but you just keep going. It's like an unfolding journey of discovering more and more.
So true. And it seems like there's just to me, food is just fascinating because there's always something new to learn. And you just want to keep going down the rabbit hole even
Yeah.
more.
And it's tasty.
It is. It is. It's fun. It's fun. And so tell me about your time. You accomplished so much at Kiss the Ground. I was always so amazed at what you did with such a small team. And can you talk a little bit about Kiss the Ground and your time there? And then tell us about the White Buffalo Land Trust. I'm just starting to learn about it from you, and
Yeah.
it looks like you are all doing incredible work. And we're so excited to feature your persimmon vinegar on the Bumbleroot Regenerative Marketplace. And
Woohoo.
just tell us more about Kiss the Ground, and then going into White Buffalo Land Trust.
Yeah. We really need an acronym. It's like long to say white buffalo trust. So yeah, Kiss the Ground, the initial inspiration was, okay, climate change has been in our lives and discussed in our lives. I mean, I was born in the 80s, so it's been a discussion my entire life. And I've always worked in the environmental space and wanted to do good. But this story around like all you can do is do less harm has never quite made sense to me. So like buy an electric car that's like a little better than using gas. Use your reusable to-go bottle that's like a little better than using plastic. Everything is like this incremental kind of like humans are kind of a burden on this planet, but like try to do a better job. And when we started learning about soil carbon sequestration and land stewardship as a way to participate in almost our ideal human role in an ecosystem, and that we could spend more effort or spend our effort on the farm in a different way and as customers purchasing food in a different way, and that effort could lead to land regeneration and taking carbon out of the atmosphere and balancing the carbon cycle and healthier food. It was just so exciting. So that's kind of like the energy and inspiration behind Kiss the Ground. And then a lot of the work um, we've done educational films. We wrote a middle school curriculum. There's a couple free middle school resources that we have online. We worked in partnership to do a full-length film, which is almost out. It was supposed to premiere at Tribeca yesterday, but there was no Tribeca. So.
Yes, I was so looking forward to that.
I know, we're so close.
See it
soon. It'll be soon. So yeah, films, educational materials, and then we've done a lot of work with brands and done a lot of online courses. And the work with brands is having them look at how to impact their supply and how to source differently from farmers practicing or testing out regenerative ag. And then, yeah, we have a gardening course, we have an advocacy training, so kind of like a grassroots, what can I do in my own community? And then we have a course for brands. So yeah, that's a lot of the work that we've done over the years. We've done some really crazy stuff too. Like we showed up in Paris during the climate summit, and we were supposed to do this huge art exhibit in collaboration with a French artist there at the base of the Eiffel Tower, but the terrorist attacks happened, so they changed it all last minute. But we ended up displaying these, like it was like a ticker of words on the Eiffel Tower. And so I think the ones that made international headlines were like decarbonize or COP21, but it also said The Soil Story, which is the title of the film that we made. And it also said Kiss the Ground because they couldn't fit the. So we have these photos and everyone's like, those are Photoshop. We're like, nope, we flew to Paris, we hung out with the artist, and we decided to load in Kiss the Ground.
It really happened.
So yeah, we've done a lot of like scrappy grassroots, like can we pull it off and make a lot of noise. we're not the only ones who have been working on regenerative ag. There are tons of brands and people like yourself and nonprofits and groups that have been working on this. But I think all of our collective efforts have made quite a difference in the last couple of years. This is definitely a conversation that's much more in the forefront.
It's really interesting to me how a few years ago we'd say regenerative and people had no idea what that meant, and we kind of had to use organic as a way to start the conversation, or sustainable and move up to regenerative. And now for the most part, when I meet people, a lot of people have actually heard the word, or they have been exposed to it in some way. And so just to have that expansion of awareness in just a couple of years is really huge. And I think Kiss the Ground played a big part in that. I think the soil story really helped to give a lot of people just that short understanding of what this could mean, and the power that the food system can have for our climate, for the planet, for diversity. So thank you for all the work you did there.
Yeah, of course. It was fun. And then you were asking about the transition. So I'm still involved at Kiss the Ground. Actually, right now I'm the chair of the board. So it's a pretty funny. Ryland and I swapped positions. He's one of the co-founders, and he's always been chair of the board and working full-time Cafe Gratitude. And so we completely did a swap. So I get to be involved from that lens, and still get to attend board meetings and do certain things. But it got to this point where I was really ready, in many ways. One was I was really ready to kind of get my hands dirty in product development, because we'd spent years talking to brands and educating and talking about how they could impact their supply. And at some point, I felt, number one, frustrated that maybe we weren't getting through. And number two, that there was this lack of credibility in those conversations, because they're like, you're not dealing with what I'm dealing with. Like, you don't have to sell product, you don't have to pay the staff, you don't have to figure out our budgets. So I got really excited about product development a while ago. And I've been working with Jesse Smith from White Buffalo Land Trust. He consults with Kiss the Ground in the Farmer Scholarship Program. And so I've been working with him and known him for years, and was tracking the progress of this developing nonprofit. And so when the opportunity came to kind of jump in and work on product development, I jumped. And then, also 7 years is a long time to be building and working on something. So I was also a little ready for something new.
Right, and tell us about the history of the White Buffalo Land Trust, and how did it get started, and what is its mission, and what is your vision as executive director going forward? And love to hear more about the vinegar that we're featuring on our website too.
Yeah. So White Buffalo Land Trust was founded a little over 2 years ago by Steve Finkel, who lives in Santa Barbara, and actually was founded in honor of his late wife. So she passed away, and something she had got really inspired about, and they had both gotten really inspired about towards the end of her life, was regenerative agriculture. And so one of her requests for her legacy and energy after she left this planet was to establish a land trust and a nonprofit to create more education and training and awareness, but really on the ground. And so White Buffalo, we have a farm in Summerland. It's a 12-acre demonstration farm where we're testing how to take an avocado orchard that was really sick and regenerate the soil, add in diverse perennials, add in cover crops, rotate animals, like bringing in regenerative agriculture to really heal this piece of land. And it's a very small demonstration site. It's only 12 acres, but we're taking different pieces of it and trialing different methods so that farmers can come and check out what we're doing and then extrapolate that to a larger scale. And then we offer training programs. So we host savory trainings and partner with Soil Health Academy and host trainings for farmers and also community members. So we work with a lot of different schools locally. And then we're also raising funds to purchase 1,000 acres. So we're doing a big capital campaign this year to do a purchase of 1,000 acres, which will become a much bigger center for Regen Ag in the Central Coast region, where we can demonstrate it and train farmers and work with producers in the area. So that's one big part of the org. And then the other kind of big part of the org is product development. And so that's what I'm getting to lead. And right now it's persimmon vinegar, but we're also working on, we have another product that we're hoping to bring to market this year. And then a couple, we have tons of ideas, many ideas in the pipeline. But the through line for the food brand is, are we sourcing it locally? Is it regenerating ecosystems and land? Is it really, does the food tell a story of its place in a way that commoditized kind of grocery store pasta doesn't? And how do we bring out the essence of what we love about food and the essence of place and the uniqueness of just, the diversity of ecosystems. I actually had this moment recently where I was sitting with our vinegar maker. Our vinegar maker is in Solvang, which is this funny, Christmas all year round touristy small town. But we were sitting and he was having me taste some of these vinegars that he had made, not even the persimmon, but it was like, I just threw all the fruit from my backyard and some spices in this one, taste this. And I was tasting it and I was like, wow, we've lost so much uniqueness in our food system. I'm overwhelmed by how much we've lost. We go to the grocery store, we get balsamic and olive oil, and or we get that one salad dressing we get every single time. And that diversity of food, I think, is missing and is so beautiful.
Oh, and I loved how you talked about the essence of the land. And I have a friend here, Malu Anderson Ramirez, that we talk about regenerative all the time. And we're like, as the next evolution, landscape agriculture, what does agriculture look like for a specific landscape? And how do we celebrate that landscape and that diversity within a landscape? And can the food reflect that both in spirit and taste? Because even, whether it's persimmons from the Central Valley or a fruit from somewhere else, there's a different taste, there's a different feel to that. And even within Montana here, we've been talking about cattle from one region that are on grass versus in another region eating another grass. There's a distinct taste to that, and we don't celebrate that, and we don't experience that. And can we bring more of what the wine industry has done so well into other parts of food by bringing that essence of the land, by celebrating agriculture of a landscape rather than just a state or a region, but actually that land specific landscape. So I love that you guys are looking at it like that.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately food in our country has become, conversations of uniqueness have become elite conversations. And I think that's really unfair. In this whole recent crisis where we're all stuck at home, I started to spend a lot more time in just my little tiny home garden. And we were planting seeds the other day. It's $1.30, $2 a seed packet. We planted all these seeds, and this one packet, I put so many because I was not trusting that they were going to come up. I was like, let's just hedge our bets and make sure we put a lot of seed out. And they all came up. So there were millions. This is bok choy. There were millions of little bok choy. I was like, oh God, now I have to kill 75% of the little tiny bok choy. But just looking at, nature is abundant and food is actually really abundant. And I just think it's so unfair that we've, that these conversations have become very elite.
That's a really good point. And I kind of wonder with COVID-19 right now, if it'll bring food conversations back to a local level, back to a household level. I know growing up, I had a garden, and my mom had a garden, and I'd be out there with her, and it was just what people did. And there's such a discovery. It doesn't need to be always intellectual story or conversations about food. There's just that experience of food for everyone. And this is bringing that home as different, there are shortages in different foods and breakages in supply chains. It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. And what do you think? Is there a way to expand those conversations, or to expand that access to food, or a solution to making sure that these conversations aren't just being had with certain groups of people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a single answer to that, but I definitely think it's like a good life's work to think about how we're much more inclusive in conversations around regeneration, but also how we break down this idea that, you know, we don't live in an abundant and beautiful ecosystem where we can all play a role. And yeah, I certainly at regenerative ag conferences, I feel like it's only reaching a certain audience, and I'd love to see that change. And I'd love to see this movement develop in a much more inclusive way, because I think it is for everyone. You know, right now we're selling vinegar at $20 a bottle. I get that that's not for everyone, but can everyone make vinegar? Can every community have access to healthy food? 100%. And I think that it's valid, you know, it's important for us to work on those things.
It is. Can you tell us, let's go back, what is the process for making vinegar, and why vinegar for your first product?
Yeah. This vinegar came up for a lot of different reasons. It's actually a project that Jesse started working on years ago when he was farming a spot near Ojai called Casitas Valley Farm. But persimmon trees are really uniquely fit for the Central California climate. They don't use a ton of water. They're perennial. Yeah, they draw carbon out of the atmosphere. Even if you're not farming organically, you can grow them without a lot of inputs. And so they're a perfect crop for this place. Originally, they're from Asia, and that's where a lot of people use and make persimmon vinegar. That's where it comes from. And the health benefits are actually really incredible. We're learning more about them, but it's good for your liver, it's good for your heart. It's an antioxidant. There's some studies linking it as a anti-cancer. So yeah, it's a really incredible food. But first, persimmon trees are really fit for our climate. Second, they harvest at one time of year. So it's wonderful if you're a farmer's market shopper, because you can buy persimmons at every stand for 2-3 months out of the year. It's like November to January. But for a farmer, often that means that you're stuck with all this fruit you can't get to market. And there's very little market for value-added persimmon products. So one of the thoughts was, can we take a crop that's being undervalued? We're able to take, we are working right now with all organic producers, but we're able to take any grade of fruit, whether it's super fermenting and mushy and falling off the tree, or, you know, a little more hard, or perfect harvest. It can be ugly or disfigured. We can take it all. And then the process of making vinegar is it's actually turned into wine first, and then it's fermented into vinegar.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's pretty simple. The only ingredients are water and persimmon.
So fermented, so tell us, can you lead through that process? So Water.
Yeah, I'm probably not the best at describing this because I've only witnessed it a couple times. But essentially, it just goes through multiple fermentations. So the fruit comes in, it kind of gets like mixed into this mashy, goopy juice stuff. Um, and yeah, and then I think they add water and it goes into a primary fermentation and then a secondary fermentation. And then at some point it goes into these big tanks. And then once it goes through that whole process where it's changing, where it goes into wine and then it goes into vinegar, where it's always changing. Once it kind of settles after a couple of months, it goes into barrels and it ages. So this is also not a fast process. So once we harvest, we're, anywhere from 8 months to a year before we're bottling.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how does the persimmon vinegar to you taste different than other vinegars you've had? And how can people use this? How should people, if they buy this, like what are some of the best ways to be able to utilize it in their kitchen?
Yeah. It is much sweeter, I think. You can really taste the persimmony sweet taste. Um, apple cider vinegar is amazing for you, but it's created really fast. We could create this vinegar really fast. So if we got fancy machinery and pumped a lot of air, you can do it in a couple weeks, a couple months. Oh, hold on 1 second. A couple weeks, a couple months. But we're choosing to do the slow process, which I think really brings out all the healing properties of the food. So yeah, taste, it's pretty sweet. We use it in salad dressings. We use it, you can take it as a health shot every morning, like a little tiny shot, take it down. We use it in hot tonics. So you can put like honey and hot water and vinegar and then add cinnamon or cloves or nettle or like whatever your thing is, add it in there. And then you can use it as a facial toner, which is kind of crazy. So with water or with witch hazel or calendula, adding in a couple other things as a spray for your face. Marinades, stir fries. Yeah, it's kind of, you can use it any way you would use any other vinegar, but.
That sounds incredible. I'm sorry. The, working from home, the phone. I cannot wait to start really incorporating this into my daily use, and we're so excited to have it. And the packaging is beautiful too.
Thanks. Yeah, the inspiration were Japanese wood blocking and that art form, and so they did the persimmon branch, but it's kind of mimicking that style of art.
Oh, beautiful. And is there anything else that you want us to know about the White Buffalo Land Trust before we sign off?
Good question. Yeah, I think, to me, what's most important is that we see the vision for regenerative ag as a global movement, but that we also really figure out how it works for our community. And that's the focus of White Buffalo Land Trust, is Central California and our communities of farmers, our school children and education, and then how do we create these products that uniquely reflect this place. And I can just imagine in the future, if we had groups like this everywhere, like what you're doing in Montana, like if every place had their group that was supporting land regeneration and people healing, and like what a world that would be. And so, yeah, this is the work that we're doing locally that we also hope inspires global participation, but hoping that everyone takes it on locally as well.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Outside of my Bumbleroot work, we have a group that's really been working on resilient food systems and regenerative agriculture within the area of Montana that I live in. And it's just been such a beautiful addition to my life, those relationships, but getting to learn more about our ecosystem and what are our food needs and how do we engage schools and kids. And it's just so fulfilling, and just encourage anyone thinking about doing that, that once you start poking around there, I would think in almost every community there are a few other people interested in that. And what we started doing, we have a lot of hot springs around, so those of us really interested started going and soaking and talking about these things.
That sounds terrible.
Then you start learning about other people interested, and you start learning about the different businesses and producers who are interested, and pretty soon you have this group, and it feels like anything's possible because you have, you know, anything that you would need from the market support, you producers, you have it there. So then it becomes an exercise in dreaming and what could we do, because we have all the players here, so let's make this happen. And instead of everyone having to do their own thing, it's a lot more fun to do it as a community and look at these projects as community projects, because that's what they are.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you, Lauren. It's always so good to talk to you and see your face. And we're excited to, when you have new products, to put those up on the website as well.
Thank you so much. It was fun to get to see you.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.